Are there any hope that the Texas State Legislature will address ballot access this session?
Well, that is strongly dependent upon the actions of the people, such as in our listening audience. Most of the time, and there are different reasons for this, but most of the time, legislators, senators, and such, including in our own legislature, and governors, will only respond to something they don't really care about if they feel that the voters care enough about it to shake them up. If you call them, and I do mean on a regular basis, maybe every other day for a while, I'm not saying be unpleasant or impolite, but the fact is, if they get the understanding that people, lots of the people who will vote are for or against them in just a short while, when they get the idea that this is something that people care about, then they start looking at it seriously. Right now, House Bill H20, HB 820, in the Texas House is in committee. One of the members of the Texas Constitution Party, a gentleman from Corpus Christi by the name of Chuck Burnett, wrote it. And he handed it to his representative there in Corpus Christi, a Democrat by the name of Solomon Ortiz, who decided to sponsor it. Well, apparently, Mr. Ortiz has gotten a little bit worried. He's probably catching it from his Democrat colleagues as well as Republicans because, hey, let's keep the competition down. Just between us, that's enough. But if he starts getting people to co-sponsor his bill, both Democrats and Republicans, because people are calling them, as well as calling people on the committee, which is headed up by Todd Smith, and one of the local reps in Houston, Dwayne Bohack, is on the committee. If we start calling them, our own representatives, and others if you have to, and these people on the committee, and then they'll start getting the idea somebody is really concerned about this. That we don't need this kind of trouble. We might want to, at least on the short term, play along.
So what you're telling me is HB 8, is it 820?
820
is in committee, but as we know, there's no co-sponsors as yet.
Yeah, I mean, and if there are no co-sponsors, you can probably figure that Mr. Ortiz is going to get cold feet. But we can do something about that.
So if people want to be involved, they can contact the Constitutional Party, and you'll direct them,
yes,
right?
And by the way, as I said, our website, again, is www.cptexas.org. And right on the front of the website, there's a story by the same Chuck Burnett speaking to this issue. And we can give you information if you contact us. As a matter of fact, if anybody wants to contact, and I'll give this email address out, I will just send this back because I don't know how many people are doing it. We're going to make a YouTube on this anyway, I hope. TexasVoterFreedom@yahoo.com. And I will send you links to where you can go and see the status of this, who these people are on the committee. And by the way, even failing that, if you don't do that, at least do this. Call up your own state representative. And then, just looking down the line, since we have about a 2-month window to work on this, I figure.
Say that again. Texas Voter Freedom.
TexasVoterFreedom@yahoo.com.
At Yahoo, okay.
And I will personally attend to it.
I will personally make a call on this myself because, this topic is the dirty little secret in politics that nobody really wants to touch.
And if
let's talk about...
If the feedback gets too much for me to answer, I will just have them post it on the Texas website, which
great.
I'll try to do anyway.
Now, could you give us some details of HB 820?
Well, I didn't think to bring it here with me, but what it is, the particulars are this, that the current ballot signature or convention attendance, that is voter precinct convention attendance, which would have to be the same number statewide by voter precinct. That means after, on the day that the big parties have their precinct or their primary elections, from 7 to 9 in the evening afterwards, they have their caucuses. Well, at that same time period, we meet within our various voter precincts at pre-designated locations, and we have a precinct convention leader who will sign people in, registered voters, that they attended this convention. That's where we, of course, nominate our delegates.
Now, Clell, one moment. You're saying the Constitutional Party or the Green Party or the Libertarian Party would also have their own conventions.
And this and if we can, and instead of having to get almost 45,000 people registered in these statewide in Texas, it would be cut to 500. Or even failing that, in that 75-day period, instead of going for 45,000, actually more than that, signatures, we'd only have to be assured of 500 that would have to pass muster.
And these 500 would be obtained at those
the
caucuses.
The caucuses could be done. That is one thing. If we don't get the 500 people there, 1 week after that, the ballot access season begins, and you have 75 days from that time to get however many signatures. If it were dropped to 500, all of a sudden it becomes a very doable matter. Whereas
even 5,000 would
be a whole lot better than 45,000.
But the wording is actually dropped to 500.
500.
They're never going to go for that.
Well,
they might parley a little bit.
Well, the thing is, in my opinion, most politicians do what they're sufficiently scared into doing. It's not. They're not friends of people. I mean, they're not going to be. I mean,
right.
They're not.
They're looking after number one. Yeah.
But if they are sufficiently frightened, then they might do something.
Do you have any suggestions on how we could help motivate these people to look at it a little bit closer?
Well, press releases, of course, to YouTube. But again, I cannot emphasize it enough. Personal contact. You call your representative repeatedly. Let them know, in no uncertain terms, politely but firmly, this is front burner information. This is a front burner issue for you, and that you will take very seriously their non-action, positive action, or negative action, whatever it may be, not only the next election day, but for the rest of the time they're running for office, insofar as you have a ballot that you can cast in one of their elections. That if they behave badly or don't behave at all, which is about as bad, no more.
Well, I have a few suggestions. This ballot access issue needs to be made a campaign issue in the primaries. If you wait until the legislature meets, you're generally sunk. They build momentum for these bills long before that. So, when people are running in the primaries, it needs to be put to them then. Will you support it? Yes or no, preferably in writing. Another thing is, if no, we need to ask the Democrats and Republicans, why are you afraid of competition? After all, competition, if you're say you're a diehard Democrat and I'm a diehard Republican, open ballot access laws, the competition from it will give us better candidates.
Yes.
We'll have better Democrats, we'll have better Republicans. So there's no reason to fear this. They should be willing to do this. The other thing is, all third parties and independents, in my opinion, ought to drop every other issue other than this. They need to unite on this issue in every state and make this. They need to lead the charge on the campaign for primaries. They need to put the questionnaires out. Put those guys on the spot. I have a little experience on that. When they get something in writing sent to them, they want to ignore it, but it's hard to ignore when it's in writing. If you guys are willing to publish, hey, no response. Let them come back to bite them. Yeah. That would be my suggestion.
And not only with the third parties, and I agree with that, by the way, everyone listening to this has to understand, if you don't have true freedom of the ballot, if this ballot access bill in Texas and others around the country do not pass, the rest is pretty much pointless. It doesn't mean anything.
That's right. We can have tea parties, and we can talk about the 9th and 10th Amendment, states' rights amendments. We can do we can march on Washington, but who are we going to get up there to vote the way we wanted them to if we don't have open access on the ballot? They're not going to do it. These clowns in Washington, for sure, most of them, there are a few good ones, of course, but most of them spit in our face. They could care less what we think because they're entrenched. They're protected.
And they know it. And the thing is, it comes down to something as simple as this. You don't have candidates on the ballot, essentially you don't win. You don't win elections, you can't win majorities. You don't win majorities eventually, you don't move policy, everything stays the same or gets worse.
Well, it's obviously getting worse than this.
I mean, anybody can look around and see that.
You know, I know this is the sexiest topic in the world, but it's one of the most important if you want real change.
Yeah, I mean, it's...
I sure find it sexy.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, it's good deal.
It can be hot if you stick this pledge in one of their faces. You know, there's another thing about this aspect. Now, we've got these restricted